Captain Rylan adjusted his wide-brimmed hat as he stepped down from his small, worn spacecraft. The port was alive with activity, a mix of humans, aliens, and machines of every shape and size. Traders shouted over the sounds of engines and chatter, while strange alien scents mingled with the aroma of freshly cooked food from hundreds of stalls lining the market plaza. Rylan had been coming to this neutral trading planet for years, but today felt different. Today he carried something unusual, something that had earned him quite a reputation across several star systems, a perfectly baked 13-inch Earth baguette. It wasn't just any bread. Rylan had spent months perfecting the recipe, adjusting the yeast, water, and flour ratios to create a loaf that was crisp on the outside and soft inside. The baguette had a golden crust, delicate air pockets inside, and a flavor that reminded anyone who tasted it of home. For humans, it was nostalgia. For aliens, it was something magical. As he walked through the bustling port, a group of alien women caught his attention. They were unlike anything he had seen before. Their skin shimmered faintly like liquid silver, and their eyes were large and golden, reflecting the sunlight in ways that made him squint. Their slender forms moved gracefully, but there was a noticeable intensity in their gaze, as though they were searching for something extraordinary. Rylan's hand instinctively rested on the baguette tucked under his arm. The aliens stopped a few meters away, whispering to each other in musical tones that no human could understand. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward. She raised a long, delicate hand and pointed at the bread. Her lips curved into what seemed like a smile, though it was hard to tell in their alien features. Then she spoke in broken Common, the universal language, her voice surprisingly clear. You have it, 13-inch, she said, her accent musical and slightly accented. Rylan blinked. Yeah, he said, trying to sound casual. That's a 13-inch Earth baguette. Pretty big, huh? The alien woman's eyes widened, and she let out a laugh that sounded like a melody. Let me taste this baguette, she demanded, stepping closer with an excitement that made the other women giggle. Rylan froze. He had expected curiosity, maybe even requests to buy, but a command like this was unusual. Still, he couldn't resist. All right, he said, carefully handing over the baguette. Just careful with it. It's my best work. The alien woman took the bread delicately, examining it from every angle. Her long fingers traced the golden crust as though trying to understand what made it so special. Then, without hesitation, she bit into it. Rylan watched as her eyes lit up. Her jaw relaxed, and she let out a sound of pure delight, one that made nearby humans and aliens pause to look. She chewed thoughtfully, then turned to her companions. Incredible. Taste unlike anything, must know how made, she said. Rylan smiled. It's simple, really. Flour, water, yeast, time, and care, that's it. The alien woman shook her head, laughing again. No, humans, amazing. You make magic from simple things. The other alien women crowded around, each wanting a piece. Rylan found himself slicing the baguette carefully, giving each of them a small portion. As they tasted it, their reactions were all the same: astonishment, delight, and wonder. Word spread quickly. Within minutes, a small crowd had formed around Rylan. Humans whispered to each other, amazed at the attention he was getting. Aliens pointed, gestured, and tried to replicate his expressions of pleasure. One particularly curious alien tried to examine the crust with a tiny scanning device but shook its head in frustration. Cannot replicate taste, it admitted. Rylan laughed. Told you, some things are better made by hand. The tallest alien woman, who had eaten first, looked at him with an intensity that was almost intimidating. You human must come Zephyra, show make more, share magic. Rylan raised an eyebrow. Zephyra, that's quite far. And I don't know if my magic travels well in a spaceship. But the alien women were insistent. They spoke rapidly among themselves, pointing at him, then at the bread, then at their ship waiting in the nearby docking bay. Finally, the tallest one looked back at him and said, "You chosen, teach Zephyra, humans special, must share." Rylan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Traveling to another planet with aliens he barely understood was risky, but there was something in their eyes, something that told him humans had value in ways the galaxy hadn't seen before. He nodded slowly. "All right, I'll come, but on one condition: you let me do it my way." The aliens agreed immediately, their expressions glowing with anticipation. As they guided him toward their sleek spacecraft, Rylan couldn't help but look back at the bustling spaceport. He had always known humans were clever, inventive, and stubbornly persistent. But he had never realized just how much aliens could admire these traits. Something as simple as a baguette could open doors he had never imagined. Inside the alien ship, the women studied him curiously, asking questions about Earth, about humans, and about his cooking methods. Rylan explained as best he could, showing them kneading techniques and baking secrets. They absorbed every word, their minds clearly capable of understanding far more than most humans could. Hours passed as the ship jumped across star systems. Finally, they approached Zephyra, a planet that shimmered with colors Rylan had never seen before. Its oceans glowed faintly, and the sky was streaked with luminous clouds. The atmosphere was thick with scents of unknown plants, and the architecture gleamed with sleek curves and hovering structures. It was beautiful, alien, and intimidating all at once. The alien women led him to a large hall filled with other Zephyrians. Many had heard of the human who could make magical bread, and all eyes were on Rylan as he entered. He felt the weight of their gaze but stood tall, holding the remaining baguette in his hands as a symbol of goodwill. A Zephyrian elder, taller and more imposing than anyone else, approached him. Its skin was a deep metallic blue and its eyes were like liquid silver. "Human," it said, its voice resonating through the hall. "We have heard of your creation. If you truly possess this talent, you may teach our people. But know this: Zephyra respects skill, not titles. Your worth will be measured by your work." Rylan smiled. "Then I guess I'd better get started." Over the next few days, Rylan taught the Zephyrians the art of baking. They were quick learners but lacked the subtle human touch that made bread special. They tried to replicate the crust, the softness, and the flavor, but each attempt fell short. Rylan realized that humans had something unique, an ability to combine precision, care, and intuition in ways that machines and aliens couldn't fully imitate. The alien women watched him closely, occasionally offering suggestions, but it was clear that they understood humans in a new light. Rylan's baking wasn't just about food, it was about patience, creativity, and heart. These were qualities that could not be measured by technology alone. One evening, as Rylan rested after a long day of baking demonstrations, the tallest alien woman approached him. She handed him a small loaf she had attempted herself. "Not perfect, but better." "Thanks, human," she said, bowing slightly. Rylan chuckled. "You're welcome. Remember, it's not just the recipe, it's the care you put in. That's what makes it human." Her eyes sparkled and she nodded. "Humans special must share more." Rylan realized then that this mission was bigger than he had imagined. He was not just a baker teaching aliens to make bread. He was showing the galaxy what humans were capable of: their creativity, their ingenuity, and their ability to inspire others simply by being themselves. As he looked out at the alien city glowing under the twin moons of Zephyra, he felt a surge of pride. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, seen as primitive or fragile. Yet here he was, a simple human with a 13-inch baguette, captivating the attention of an entire alien civilization. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The adventure on Zephyra had just started, and Captain Rylan was ready to show the universe that humans could amaze, charm, and teach in ways no one had ever expected. All it took was a little courage, a little creativity, and of course, a perfect 13-inch baguette. Days passed on Zephyra, and Captain Ryland found himself busier than ever. What had started as a simple mission to teach aliens how to bake had quickly grown into something much larger. The Zephyrians were fascinated by everything human, not just the bread, but the creativity, patience, and humor that seemed to come naturally to him. Everywhere he went, crowds gathered, eager to watch, learn, and taste. The first official baking demonstration was held in a large hall that glimmered with the soft light of Zephyra's twin moons. The walls were made of a translucent crystal that shimmered with color whenever someone moved. The floor hovered slightly above the ground, and the air was filled with a faint hum, as if the planet itself were alive. Ryland could not help but marvel at the alien architecture, but he had little time to admire it. Today, he had a crowd to teach. A group of Zephyrian students stood in neat rows, their eyes glowing faintly as they watched Ryland carefully slice his baguette for a demonstration. He held it up for them to see. "This is not just bread," he said, smiling. "This is about patience, care, and understanding. You can have the best ingredients, the best tools, but if you don't put your heart into it, it won't taste right." The aliens exchanged glances. Their brains were wired for efficiency and perfection, yet they understood that this heart was something entirely new. They had never considered that emotion or care could affect a creation. Ryland continued to knead the dough, showing them the rhythm, the stretch, and the feel of it in his hands. "You need to listen to it," he said. "It tells you when it's ready. It's not just following instructions, it's understanding what it needs." He passed small pieces of dough to each student. They tried to mimic his movements, their long, graceful fingers folding and pressing, but the dough often snapped back or tore. Ryland walked among them, gently correcting their techniques, encouraging them with patience. "You're improving," he said, smiling at one young Zephyrian who had managed a nearly perfect fold. "See, humans aren't perfect, but we keep trying. That's what counts." Word of Ryland's teaching spread quickly. Soon, Zephyrians from other parts of the planet came to see him, bringing curious gadgets and scanning devices to try to replicate the bread themselves. Machines could measure the temperature, humidity, and chemical composition, yet every attempt failed. The flavor, texture, and aroma were impossible to recreate without the human touch. One day, a rival alien trader arrived in the city. He was from a neighboring star system and had heard rumors of the magical human bread. He was determined to steal the secret and replicate it using his advanced technology. He set up a machine that kneaded, baked, and even flavored bread automatically. Ryland watched as the machine produced loaf after loaf. They looked perfect, identical to his baguettes in every way: golden crust, soft interior. But when the rival took a bite, his eyes widened in shock. The taste was flat, unremarkable. It lacked the warmth, the subtle flavor, the soul of a human-made loaf. Ryland smiled quietly. "Some things can't be copied," he said to himself. "Not by machines, not by aliens, not by technology. Only humans can make it real." The rival trader's face darkened and he left in frustration. But the incident made Ryland realize something important. Humans had a unique edge in the galaxy. It wasn't just about strength, weapons, or technology. It was creativity, intuition, and the ability to infuse work with care and passion. Even the most advanced civilizations couldn't replicate that. Meanwhile, the tallest alien woman, Zira, became Ryland's closest companion on Zephyra. She shadowed him everywhere, asking questions about humans, Earth, and even the small details he often took for granted. She wanted to understand why humans found joy in such simple things: a perfectly baked baguette, a story told around a fire, or a song sung for no reason. "You humans strange," she said one evening watching him knead dough. "Work, play together." "Why?" Ryland laughed. "We like to enjoy life. We work hard, but we also celebrate what we create. Food is just one way we do that. Bread, music, art, it's all a way of sharing who we are." Zira tilted her head. Share who you are, maybe that is why humans special. Rylan nodded. Exactly. And maybe that's what the galaxy needs more of, not just power, not just technology, but creativity, passion, and heart. The more Rylan taught, the more Zephyrians began to change. Their culture had always focused on precision, efficiency, and logic, but now they started experimenting. Small bakeries popped up across the city, where young Zephyrians attempted new flavors, textures, and techniques. Some of their creations were strange, but each had its own charm. And for the first time, the Zephyrians began to understand the concept of imperfection as something beautiful. Rylan found himself invited to the Zephyrian Council. The leaders wanted to officially recognize him as a cultural ambassador, someone who could represent humans across the galaxy. The idea both humbled and amused him. He was just a baker, after all. Yet he realized that in teaching something as simple as bread, he had demonstrated humanity's creativity, persistence, and ability to inspire. "Captain Rylan," said one council elder, its metallic blue skin shimmering under the hall lights. "You have shown Zephyra the value of human creativity. It is rare, and it cannot be replicated by our most advanced technology. We invite you to continue sharing your knowledge, not just here, but across the galaxy, so others may see humans as we now do." Ryland's heart swelled. He had never imagined that baking bread could have such an impact. "I'll do it," he said, smiling, "but only if your people are willing to keep learning, experimenting, and having fun while they do it." The council agreed enthusiastically, and so Ryland's mission expanded. He traveled across Zephyra, visiting cities, towns, and spaceports, showing humans' unique creativity. Everywhere he went, he left a trail of admiration and inspiration. Aliens who had once dismissed humans as primitive began to see them differently. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, explorers, and creators who could change minds without weapons or power. One memorable event was the first Zephyra Earth Bread Festival. The city square was transformed into a colorful celebration, with stalls, music, and demonstrations. Zephyrians lined up to try Ryland's baguettes and other human foods he had introduced. Laughter and joy filled the air, and for the first time, Ryland felt the true weight of what he was doing. He was showing the galaxy that humans could lead not through force, but through creativity, kindness, and skill. Zira stayed by his side throughout the festival, guiding him through alien customs and helping him communicate with locals. She had grown to admire humans deeply, not just their baking, but their ingenuity, courage, and humor. "You human amazing," she said quietly one night as they watched the city lights from a high balcony. "Teach, not just food, but heart. Humans make galaxy different." Ryland smiled at her words. He realized that she understood something many humans on Earth never did. Their creativity and spirit were gifts that could inspire entire civilizations. As weeks turned into months, Ryland's influence spread. Zephyrians began experimenting with other human arts, painting, storytelling, music, and games. Each new endeavor brought them closer to understanding the human way of thinking, inventive, emotional, and delightfully unpredictable. Humans were no longer just another species in the galaxy. They were a source of admiration and curiosity. Ryland thought often about home. He missed Earth sometimes, its skies, smells, and familiar faces. But here, on Zephyra, he had discovered something greater than any battlefield or trade deal. He had discovered that humans had the power to change the galaxy through ingenuity, care, and creativity. And it all started with a simple 13-inch baguette. By the end of the second part of his journey, Rylan had become more than a baker. He had become a symbol of humanity's unique edge, a living example that humans could achieve greatness in ways no one expected. Aliens respected him not because of strength or weapons, but because of the creativity, patience, and heart he brought to everything he did. Rylan knew that the galaxy was vast, full of challenges and wonders. But he also knew that humans had something special to offer, something worth sharing wherever he went. And with Zira and the Zephyrians by his side, he was ready to continue the adventure, to teach, to inspire, and to show that humanity could shine brighter than any star, not with power but with heart. Captain Rylan had never imagined that a simple mission to teach aliens how to bake bread could turn into something so significant. Months had passed on Zephyra, and what had started as curiosity had grown into admiration. Humans were no longer seen as just a strange, young species in the galaxy. They were a source of inspiration, and Rylan was at the center of it all. The Zephyrian cities had transformed. Where once everything had been sleek, perfect, and precise, now there was room for creativity, experimentation, and expression. Small bakeries had sprouted on every corner, producing loaves with odd shapes, colorful fillings, and flavors that no one had ever imagined. Even more remarkable, Zephyrians had started exploring other forms of human creativity. Music, painting, storytelling, and even games became part of everyday life. They discovered the joy of imperfection, the excitement of experimentation, and the power of imagination. Rylan walked through one of the busiest markets, carrying a fresh baguette under his arm. Children ran past him, giggling as they tried new bread shapes he had taught them to make. Street musicians played songs inspired by Earth, some using instruments that mimicked human designs, others creating entirely new sounds. The smell of freshly baked bread mixed with exotic alien scents, creating an atmosphere that was both chaotic and beautiful. Zira walked beside him, her golden eyes glowing faintly with happiness. "Rylan," she said, her voice filled with wonder, you have changed Zephyra. Not just bread, not just food, but the way we think, we create, we enjoy life. Humans amazing." Rylan smiled. "It's not just me," he said. "It's humans in general. We see possibilities, we experiment, and we care. That's what makes us special. I just showed you the way." Their conversation was interrupted by a group of young Zephyrians running toward them, carrying small loaves of bread they had baked themselves. "Look, look what we made!" one of them shouted, waving a colorful, triangular loaf. "It tastes different, but it's amazing." Rylan crouched to examine it. The crust was uneven, the shape was odd, but the aroma was delightful. "This is perfect," he said. "It's creative, it has heart, and it's yours. That's what matters." The children cheered. Rylan laughed, feeling a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. Teaching them wasn't just about bread, it was about passing on something far greater, the human spirit. As the weeks went on, word of Rylan's work spread beyond Zephyra. Traders, diplomats, and explorers from other star systems came to see the human who could inspire an entire planet. Humans were invited to participate in interstellar festivals, cultural exchanges, and conferences. Rylan traveled to these events, carrying his bread and his lessons about human creativity. Everywhere he went, people were amazed. They marveled not at human weapons or technology, but at the ingenuity, passion, and heart humans put into even the simplest creations. One day, Rylan received an urgent message from the Zephyrian Council. A neighboring planet, curious about the sudden changes on Zephyra, had sent a delegation. They wanted to understand what humans were doing and why Zephyrians were so captivated. The council asked Rylan to host a demonstration. The day arrived, and Rylan set up in the grand hall of Zephyra's capital. Delegates from multiple star systems watched as he kneaded dough-shaped loaves and explained the principles behind human baking. Zira assisted him, translating not just the words but the deeper meaning, the patience, care, and joy humans infused into their work. When Rylan presented the finished loaves, the delegates were hesitant at first. Many had tasted countless foods from across the galaxy, but this bread was different. One by one, they took a bite. Their eyes widened in surprise, then delight, as the flavors and textures danced across their senses. This, this is incredible, one alien delegate said. It is simple yet extraordinary. How can this be? Ryland shrugged modestly. It's about care, attention, and creativity. Humans put heart into what we make. That's what makes it special. The delegates exchanged glances, nodding slowly. They began asking questions, not just about the bread, but about humans themselves. How did they learn? How did they think? How did they create things with such ingenuity? Rylan realized that what he had taught Zephyra was now spreading across the galaxy. Humans were being admired for qualities that no technology or weapon could replicate: creativity, curiosity, and the ability to inspire. Back on Zephyra, Rylan continued his work, but it was no longer just about teaching. He had become a mentor, a symbol, and a bridge between species. Zephyrians and other aliens sought his guidance, eager to learn how humans approached problems, ideas, and creation. Even the most skeptical aliens began to appreciate the human way of thinking, not logical or precise in the usual sense, but imaginative, resourceful, and often surprisingly effective. Zira stayed close to him through it all. She had grown to admire humans deeply, not just for their skills but for their spirit. "You humans strange," she said one evening as they watched Zephyrians experiment with colorful breads and pastries. "You fail, you try, you laugh, you succeed all at once." We never understood how powerful that is," Rylan nodded. "That's us. We take risks, we make mistakes, but we keep going. And sometimes that's what leads to the greatest discoveries." As months turned into a year, Ryland's influence on Zephyra reached a point where even the planet's leadership recognized the value of human creativity. They formally appointed him as the first human cultural ambassador, a role that allowed him to travel across star systems, sharing human culture, ideas, and ingenuity wherever he went. Ryland thought about Earth, his home planet. He missed its skies, its sounds, and its familiar chaos, but he realized that humans had something greater to offer the galaxy. It wasn't just survival, strength, or technology. It was the ability to create, imagine, and inspire. He had proven that even small things, a simple loaf of bread, could change perspectives, forge friendships, and open doors between species. One day, while walking through a bustling Zephyrian city square, Ryland paused to watch a group of children play. They were humans and aliens together, laughing, creating, and experimenting. A young Zephyrian held up a triangular loaf he had made, grinning proudly. Ryland smiled, remembering the first time Zira had tasted his 13-inch baguette. That simple act had set off a chain of events that now touched the lives of countless beings across the galaxy. Zira stood beside him, her eyes glowing with warmth. "You humans, more than we knew. You inspire. You teach, even without knowing. You change galaxy." Rylan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Not just me, humans in general, and now others are learning to be creative too. That's the real power we have, spreading ideas, inspiration, and imagination." The sun of Zephyra set, casting long streaks of light across the city. Rylan looked out at the horizon, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never known. He had come here as a simple baker, with nothing but a baguette and his skills. Now, humans were admired, respected, and valued across the stars. His journey had shown that greatness didn't always come from weapons or technology. It came from heart, creativity, and courage. And as he thought about the future, he knew that this was only the beginning. Humans had much more to offer, and Rylan would continue to spread their ingenuity wherever it could inspire. From Zephyra to distant star systems, the galaxy would remember the story of the human who taught aliens to bake, who showed them the value of creativity, and who proved that the smallest acts could have the largest impact. The aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air as Rylan took a deep breath, smiling. He had never imagined that a 13-inch baguette could be so powerful. But it had done more than feed alien stomachs. It had fed curiosity, sparked imagination, and built bridges between worlds. And that, he realized, was the true gift of humanity. Rylan turned to Zira. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked. She smiled, a musical laugh escaping her. Always human, always ready. And with that, they walked forward together, leaving a trail of inspiration behind them, as the galaxy looked on in awe, finally beginning to understand what made humans truly extraordinary.